Hey kittens, and welcome back to Art School Decoded. Professor Z here, aka Mama Cat, aka Queen of Student Loan Debt. It's a title I'm not happy to wear, but apparently it's mine nonetheless. I certainly don't have the most student loan debt of anybody on the planet, but I have quite a bit, and I think it was my lack of experience and my naivety that put me in a position where I now owe over $100,000 worth of student loan debt, and that number is going to continue to grow. That's right, you heard me correct. It's going to continue to go up. So let's talk about how this happened. Well, this is me, and this is me in 2006, right after I finished my BFA in art, and I walked away from my undergrad study with about $16,000 worth of student loan debt. Certainly not the most, certainly not the least, but as far as debts go, manageable. I immediately landed a job in my field and started working in the private sector and started making my payments, just like everybody does, right? So I'd pay a little, pay a little, pay a little. But it didn't take me long to realize that I wasn't loving working in the private sector and that what I really wanted to do was teach and ultimately teach at the college level. And in 2009, I decided to go back to school to get my MFA in art so that I could be an art professor. I got accepted into a prestigious art school, but with that came a prestigious price tag. My school cost $40,000 a year. So for my 2-year program, it was going to cost me a cool $80,000, which meant that in 2011, when I graduated with my MFA, my debt had gone from $12,000, that was the remainder of my undergrad debt, to $92,000, which added in the $80K for my graduate study. I leave my graduate school, I go off and get a job, and I start making my payments. That first bill comes and I think, ooh, I can't pay $1,200 a month. I can't even afford that in rent, let alone in a student loan payment. So I called my loan officer and they said, well, you qualify for our IBR repayment plan, which is income-based repayment. And so I made my payment every month without fail based on the IBR payment plan. There's also a couple other payment plans that are available that maybe you've heard of. One's called the ICR, which is the Income Contingent Repayment Plan, and the IDR, which is the Income Driven Repayment Plan. And they even have one now called REPAY, which I think is Revised Pay As You Earn. Ultimately, what it means is that you're not going to be paying any more of your expendable income than like 10 to 15%, so that it shouldn't unduly burden you each month, right? And it sounds awesome, right? You're like, okay, cool. I can afford to go to the movies sometimes, or I can eat out every now and then. I don't have to just like live off of ketchup packets and ramen. I'll be okay. About a year of working a good job, making good money, paying good money towards my student loan debt, I decided to call my servicer and see how much I had paid down in my loans. And this is when my heart sank. My loan hadn't gone down at all. It had actually gone up. In the 12 months that I had been paying on the IBR plan, my loan went up $4,000. And I thought, how is this possible? I've been paying every month. I don't understand how this is logically possible. And that's because I have an art brain and I don't have a math brain. That degree in finger painting might be helpful for some things, but not for understanding student loans and specifically compounding interest. So for example, in 2011, I left grad school with $92,000 worth of debt. By 2012, I had discovered that 92 had jumped up to 96. And now in 2018, the total I owe is $122,000 with no signs of stopping. Short of winning the lottery, there's not a whole lot that I can do. And this is the position a lot of people find themselves in. In order for me to be able to pay this off, I'd have to be making 6 figures a year. And I think as we've discussed in previous videos, that's just not likely to happen anytime soon, if at all, in higher education the way that it is right now. My whole thought is that you shouldn't have to have a degree in finance to get a degree in finance or basket weaving or whatever it is you want to get a degree in. It shouldn't require you to have that level of understanding of financial jujitsu and legalese to be able to unpack and read your loans. So what do, right? You're stuck in this situation. You've got loans that you know you can't pay, and you're thinking, okay, well, what does somebody do when they're swimming in debt? They declare bankruptcy.
I declare bankruptcy!
But here's the kicker. Unlike most loans that are absolved once you declare bankruptcy, it's really, really, really hard to get student loans cleared through any kind of bankruptcy filing. It's not impossible, and many people think that it is. It's not impossible, but it is exceedingly hard. So if that's a route that you're interested in pursuing, you can definitely check out the link below, which will explain more about how to do that. It's not all bad news, right? Like, what can you do to avoid this? Well, do your research. And I know that that sucks. Nobody wants to have to do a bunch of research when they get their college acceptance letter. But man, it'll save you a lot of heartache down the road. If you get accepted into college and you decide that you want to go and that that's the right choice for you, awesome. And I support you in that. But do your research. I've got a list of links down below that will help you get started so that you understand the terms of your student loans and you don't get swindled like I did. The first big thing that you really want to understand when you get your student loans is try not to get loans if you don't have to. There are other sources of payment. There's other sources of funding for school. So for example, look into scholarships, look into grants, look into fellowships. Look into money that you don't have to repay. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and all you have to do is find them. Like, the internet is awesome. Google that shit, figure it out, and get yourself some free money, because it does exist. And sometimes you have to hunt for it and you have to work for it, but dude, it's worth it. And oftentimes what happens is you'll get a little bit that way, but you won't get enough. And then that'll leave you with a balance that you have to pay. So how do you pay it? Well, you pay it with loans, but there's two very different types of loans that I want to talk to you guys about. There's federal loans and there's private loans. Hands down, without question, you want a federal loan. Fuck private loans. Don't get a private loan. It's a terrible mistake. Don't do it. Federal loans are better regulated, have better interest rates, and they qualify for a lot of different forgiveness or repayment strategies. Whereas private loans, man, that's the loan sharks. Avoid that at all costs and then some. How much debt you take on at this stage in your life matters, and it matters probably more than anything else that you'll do. And it sucks that you have to make this decision right now in your life, but guys, save yourself the frustration. Go for the federal loans if you can. Now, how do you get a federal loan? You want to fill out the FAFSA, the federal whatever, blah, 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 blah. And if you need help doing that, there's resources down below that'll help you get started. Now, once you qualify for funding from FAFSA for federal loans, there's two different types of federal loans you can get: subsidized and unsubsidized. Just like before, you absolutely 110% want to go with a subsidized loan. For subsidized loans, this means that you don't start accruing interest on that loan until after you finish school. So if you take out a $12,000 loan, all 4 years of college, that loan stays $12,000. This is important because I didn't understand this. And so what I thought I was doing when I took out my loans for graduate study was going to be the same thing I did when I took out my loans for undergrad. And it wasn't, because my graduate loans were unsubsidized, which means that the ink was not even dry on that paper and it already started accruing interest. And I had no idea. Get federal loans that are subsidized and try to avoid getting loans altogether. And if you absolutely need to take out a private loan, really, really consider going to a school that's more affordable, because ultimately, you don't want to burden yourself with debt if you don't have to. I mean, I can't stress that enough. There are some options if you've ended up in a situation like mine, where you're drowning in debt and you don't know what to do, and you're trying to figure out how you'll ever be able to pay this debt off. A lot of people are pursuing repayment options using the PSLF, which is the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. It was introduced in 2007 and became widely available in 2008. And this program says that if you work in a nonprofit organization for 10 years and you make payments every month for those 10 years, whatever's left on your loan will be absolved by the federal government. Sounds pretty awesome, right? Well, there are some snags and there are some caveats, and actually that's what all the controversy around the PSLF comes from. In order to qualify for the PSLF, you have to be making payments based on your income. You have to be making payments on loans that have been consolidated, meaning that they have been taking this loan, this loan, this loan, this loan, and they put them all together, so you're paying on one, maybe two larger consolidated loans. Now, this is the part that really kind of screwed people up. So, oh, my cat just said hello. So this is the part that really kind of screwed people up. What happened is that in 2008, when people started paying off their loans and they were working like in education, or they were working for Greenpeace or Doctors Without Borders, they assumed that their payments, because they worked for a nonprofit, qualified for this, right? And so they stayed at that nonprofit that doesn't pay that well, because they're like, all right, I'm doing something that's important and I'm giving back to my community, and, my loans will eventually be forgiven. Lo and behold, that's not the case. So what happened is that when people found out that their loans needed to be consolidated, sometimes this was like 4, 5, 6 years after they've already been paying, thinking that they're paying towards this program, they're like, okay, well, I'll consolidate. But when you consolidate your loan, it resets the timeline, meaning that you're back to the first payment of your first year. So if you've already put 6 years in and then you just consolidated, you have to start over again. So this was one of the things that got me. I thought, because right after grad school, I was working for not-for-profit universities, which meant that I qualified, right? Well, the first 2 years of my repayment didn't count because my loans weren't consolidated yet, which sucks, and it happened to a lot of people. Look who decided to join us. Hi. Well, hello. Are you going to repay your loans? Huh? Are you going to repay them? You better repay them. So, like many people, I ended up in a situation where my loans didn't qualify for this, even though my servicer told me they did. And if you do any Googling about the public service loan forgiveness, many people are currently in litigation against their loan servicers. They're taking them to court, they're suing, because a lot of people sunk a decade of their life or more into this program hoping for some sort of absolution on their debts, and it's been to no avail. The other thing that makes me a little nervous about this program is that we are now in May of 2018, and as far as I can tell, based on my research, not a single person has qualified for this and had their loans absolved. The estimate was that 7,500 people would qualify in 2018, and not a single one has been documented as getting this loan forgiven from any kind of credible source. And I've looked and looked and looked. So if you find any proof that someone's had this, please let me know, because I think it would give us all a lot of peace of mind. But my biggest advice, the advice that I would give myself if I could go back in time, would be go to school, but go to a school you can afford. And this was the mistake that I made. I got really wrapped up in the name recognition of the school that I wanted to go to, and I got really wrapped up in the prestige of it, and I didn't think about the price tag, and I should have. And so it put me in a position where now I really have to worry about this debt that's going to follow me everywhere. Has it prevented me from a quality of life? No. I live in a nice apartment. I have fur babies that I take care of, that I love very much. I was able to buy a house. I have good credit. I can qualify for loans if I need them. But ultimately, this price tag that's following me around is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's no end in sight. And I think that's terrifying. It's terrifying for me. It's something that I think about often. I'm trying not to let it affect my quality of life, but man, if I could have avoided it, I would have. So listen to me. Consider this a warning from your future self, a warning from the Time Lord. Don't take out loans that you don't need. If you have any questions, like always, please leave them down below. Make sure you click subscribe. My next videos are going to be introducing the classes that I'm going to be offering on this channel for free. Yay! So if you're interested and you want to learn more, make sure you click subscribe, click like, and let me know if you have any questions. Love you guys. Mama Cat out. Bye.